Hey everybody, welcome to our final video lecture on persuasive strategies. In this video lecture, we'll discuss what I call real talk rules for persuasion. These are 7 simple, actionable tips that early career professionals can use to actually get stuff done in the workplace. They're also designed to acknowledge and to an extent overcome some of the shortcomings as I see them with both the classical and to a lesser extent the modern psychological principles of persuasion. And the first shortcoming, perhaps the most foundational shortcoming, is this. Logic and reason, at the end of the day, are incredibly weak motivators. They're just not what make human beings tick. As you've probably experienced at numerous occasions in your life, reason alone, logic alone, evidence alone typically will not change anybody's mind. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that we don't need to make logical arguments or that we shouldn't make logical arguments. We should. But we should make those logical arguments with the clear understanding that logical arguments are primarily a defense mechanism. We make them because weak arguments are easy to dismiss out of hand. And we don't want to give opponents of our proposal a good or easy reason to just say no to our idea or our proposal. Nevertheless, if we actually want to alter the behavior of people who are neither inclined nor obliged to do what we want them to do, we have to call upon other motivators of human behavior. Some of the most powerful of these are love, habit, social pressure, and coercion. These are, in my experience, the real reason why people do things that they're neither obliged nor inclined to do. They do it because they care about somebody and that person has asked them to do something. They do it because it's a habit to engage in certain kinds of a behavior. They do it because undertaking a particular task helps them fit in or be a part of a community. Or they do things because they have to, because somebody with power can impose penalties or negative consequences on them if they fail to act. Now, to be clear, the classical and modern psychological principles of persuasion, they give us tools for leveraging, for taking advantage of these existing motivators, right? If somebody already has commitments of friendship or love in their life, we can use pathos appeals. If people already have a habit in place, we can use consistency appeals. We can use consensus appeals to appeal to existing social pressures, and so on and so forth. But the question that many of us face, particularly early on in our careers, is how can we generate these motivators? How can we generate these pressures so that we can then use these existing principles of persuasion to our advantage? That's where these tips come in. So the first tip is this. Do the work and be prepared. In other words, make your proposal easy to accept. And this tip works for 2 main reasons. First of all, people hate saying no to a proposal when somebody has put in all the work necessary to develop that proposal in full, right? It's similar to why people eat a birthday cake that their friend baked, even when the cake is terrible, right? If somebody put in the time and effort to make that cake, even if it stinks, you don't want to hurt your friend's feelings and not eat the cake. The same thing applies here. If somebody's put in the work to create a proposal, even if some folks have reservations about the proposal, they're going to feel at least a little guilty about saying no. So put in the work and make it either A, yes, easy for somebody to say yes, but alternatively, difficult for them to say no. This tip also works Because oftentimes in office settings, workplace settings, folks would rather have a imperfect solution that exists than wait on a perfect solution that doesn't exist, right? So if you've done all the work to flesh out a proposal or an idea, folks might just say yes to it, even though they have reservations, because it's real. It actually exists. Whereas if they were to say no, who knows how long they might have to wait for another real proposal to actually come along, right? So do the work, be prepared, and make it easy for the folks you're trying to persuade to say yes to your idea. Next tip, be annoyingly persistent while, of course, keeping your behavior faultlessly professional. Now, I'm not encouraging you, to be clear, to go out and pester people, to harass them, to be annoying, to be unprofessional. No. I am, however, encouraging you to be dogged in pursuit of your goals and with faultless professionalism to bring up your ideas again and again and again, if you truly believe in them. And sometimes that will persuade people to just give up and say yes. Because at the end of the day, a lot of folks care more about protecting their time and getting you to stop being annoying than they do about saying no to your proposal. Okay? So if you are dogged and persistent, some folks, in order to protect their time, will eventually just say yes. And that's another powerful technique that you can use when you don't have a lot of authority in the workplace to get your proposal moving forward. Next tip, use institutional authority whenever and wherever you can find it. So when you embark on your career, sure, you've got a college degree behind you, you've got a few years of work experience, but everywhere you look, you're going to see folks who have more experience, who in many cases are more knowledgeable about your workplace and its problems than you are, and folks in some cases who have more degrees and other credentials than you have. And as a result, you're going to have some difficulty being taken seriously. So if you want to give your ideas some authority and some weight, look for project teams or task force or committees that need somebody to take on a leadership role. And if you're qualified, take on that leadership role and use that position to lend institutional weight and institutional authority to your ideas. The authority of that project team or that task force or that committee will give your ideas some authority and weight that you wouldn't be able to bring to them individually. Next tip, speak a language your opponent will have difficulty refusing. Think about the kinds of evidence or appeals that your workplace uses frequently, right? If you're a quantitative market research firm, you probably use a lot of quantitative evidence. And if you work for a quantitative research firm and you want to change something at that workplace, then use the kinds of evidence that your workplace traffics in on a day-to-day basis, right? Frame your proposal using the language and the mindset of quantitative market research. If you want to change something at a best practices consulting firm, use the language of best practices consulting and the evidence of best practices consulting to make your case and move your proposal forward. Next tip, this is a simple and pleasant one. Be a good colleague. Use liking to your benefit. Remember, socializing around the office, it isn't just a nice way to pass the time. It's also a way to enhance your persuasive powers over the long term. As we've talked about previously, people are more likely to accept and go along with a proposal if they like the person who's putting it forward, or if they believe that that person likes them. So by developing solid workplace relationships, by getting people to like you, And by convincing them that you like them, you will be more likely to be heard, and your ideas will feel more persuasive. Along similar lines, you want to build a coalition around your proposal. You want to generate consensus or social proof for your proposal. In other words, don't be afraid of office politicking so long as you're not, overstepping your authority or engaging in inappropriate behavior. It's okay to schedule coffee meetings or lunch meetings or whatever kind of meetings to just sit down with folks and try to convince them that your idea is a good one and to try to build support for that. So don't be afraid of doing that. That is a great way to build that social proof, build that consensus around your idea. And then finally, and also similarly, give members of that coalition you've built around your proposal opportunities and permission to speak up on behalf of your idea or your proposal. Schedule a happy hour, schedule a group lunch, schedule, some sort of get together for folks who are both core supporters of your idea and maybe folks who are on the fence, and give folks the permission and the space to discuss the problem that you're trying to solve, and ideally give them the permission and space to speak confidently and candidly about why your idea is so good. That will not only help convince some of the fence sitters and make them come over to your point of view, it will also give members of your coalition experience discussing and defending your idea, which is just going to make your coalition that much more powerful and compelling. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this video lecture. Now, as you probably noticed, a lot of these real talk rules for persuasion don't really have anything to do with writing. Some of them, can't take place in writing, and some of them may or may not take place in writing. And that's a good reminder of a couple of things. First, it's a reminder that communication is a process. It rarely relies on just one medium or just one message. It's a reminder that writing, however important it may be, is neither the end-all nor the be-all of communication. And finally, most importantly, it's a reminder that to get anything done, effective communicators need to constantly move back and forth between communication mediums, leveraging the benefits and the possibilities of one medium to set up another message as they advance closer and closer towards their goal. Thanks for watching, everybody.